So we are very close to the end of our packet. So we have sort of been touching on things about how plants reproduce. We talked about flowers and pollen. So we're going to jump into that today and make sure that we really understand what's going on. So all plants go through sexual reproduction that involves fertilization. So although we have been joking around that mommy and daddy kiss equals sexual reproduction, that's not happening here. Flowers don't kiss. So what sexual reproduction really means is that egg and sperm come from two different parents. So we're going to talk about that today because no flower is walking up to another flower because, well, they can't walk. So fertilization is when egg meets and sperm meets and joins with egg. So you can see very easily in this math problem down here, sperm plus egg equals baby. Zygote is just another word for baby. So nice and easy there. For algae, remember algae is that green slime that grows in lakes and ponds and maybe your swimming pool. This can only occur if water is present to move around the sperm. So remember that algae it's not tall, it's not vascular, so it cannot be tall because it cannot move around its goodies. So that includes sperm as well. So at a certain time of the year, all of the algae releases its sperm into the water. That water moves around the sperm, kind of just swirling around, and then it'll eventually find an egg and it will make new baby algae. Okay, they swim around, look for an egg. So here's a nice picture of probably looks like a small puddle or pond covered in algae. So this, all on the same day, most likely, all of this algae is going to release its sperm and its eggs just out into the water. Those sperm are going to swim around until they find an egg, and then at that point, new baby algae are going to be made. Some plants do reproduce asexually. Like we always talk about, asexual reproduction is much, I don't want to use the word safer, but much easier. You don't have to find a partner. You don't have to go on a date. You don't have to kiss anyone. You just, bada boom, you make a baby all by yourself. So recall that this is one parent because the prefix a means not, so it is not sexual. A new plant can grow from the root, stem, or leaves of a parent. So there's a really nasty invasive tree out there right now. It's called the tree of heaven. It's from China. It's a really pretty tree, but it can reproduce asexually very quickly. So what this thing does is it actually shoots out a root to the left and to the right, and those roots eventually start growing up or north, and then boom, you got a new tree. So this plant can take over a whole area of other trees very, very quickly, so it's a little bit dangerous. So this process does not involve flowers. It does not involve pollination. It's much quicker. Like I said, you don't have to find a mate. You don't have to wait for the sperm and the egg to touch. It just happens just like that all of a sudden. So here's kind of what I was talking about is in the middle you have a strawberry plant. This strawberry plant has sent out what's called runners. The runner is an asexual form of reproduction. So this plant is a clone to this plant. Same thing over here. This is a clone of this main plant. So it's going to have the exact same DNA, the exact same genes, all of that good stuff. Non-vascular seedless plants need water, just like we were talking at the beginning of this with algae. The algae needs that water in order to move around the sperm and the egg. They're not going to have any kind of seeds or ejection or squirting cucumber, none of that stuff. Instead, they're going to release spores into the water. So spores, sperm, egg, all of that stuff gets released into the water. There they are going to develop into gametes. And remember that word gamete means sex cell, so sperm or eggs. When the sperm or eggs are formed, the sperm will swim to find an egg, and it can do the swimming very easily because there is water all around. Because we said up at the top here that these plants need water in order to reproduce. So spore cases, sometimes plants will release a whole bunch of spores or sperms and eggs. They will cling to the bottom of the leaf. So when we talked about ferns, we talked about how they have spores on the backs of their leaves. So here's that fern picture again. All of these yellow dots are spore cases. So when wind or water touches these, once they are mature, they will get swept away and they will find a new area to land. They will find another sperm or egg, depending on what it needs, and it will then turn into the new plant. So these are not seeds, these are spores. So what's different here is they're not protected. It's just sperm and egg out in the open. Angiosperms, remember that word means flowering plants because you give flowers to Angie on Valentine's Day. So pollen falls on a flower. Remember, if you're allergic to pollen, you're allergic to plant sperm. I'm allergic to pollen, so I'm with you. Okay, so the pollen moves from one flower to another. Wind is very common. That's why if you have allergies, it's worse in the spring because this pollen is literally floating in the air all around us. Or pollinators, butterflies, moths, bees are very commonly used as pollinators. If you've seen the movie Bee Movie, they take that pollen from one flower and they move it to another, and then they go out later and they collect the nectar, which they turn into honey. So bees move pollen from one flower to another. Oh, yep, okay, good. From there, fertilization happens. So this is where the ovary turns into the fruit. So we're trying to get in some weird territory here. So a fruit is a swollen ovary and other structures that contain seeds. So ladies, you have 2 ovaries inside of you. Those hold eggs. Okay? But what gets weird here is we don't eat your ovaries, but we do eat plant ovaries. So when you eat an apple, or an orange, or a grapefruit, or a cucumber, what you're eating is a fruit, yes, but you're actually eating the ovary. You're eating the lady's no-no parts. Okay, so sorry to ruin fruit for you there, but every single fruit that you can think of is the ovary of a flower. So fruits are how these are moved around. So I'm going to link a video to this slide. I might link 2 videos. So you can see here, this is a pear. Okay, the pear is upside down to how we normally think about it. But the stem on a pear is actually the stem of this flower. Right here is where the egg and sperm are doing their thing. That turns into all of this. So when you're eating that delicious pear, you're actually eating the ovary of the plant right here. Okay, this is a flower. The flower will eventually go away and you will be left with a fruit. So I'll link a pretty cool video there. Hopefully you can watch it. Once you're finished with this, please look up at the front whiteboard or on Google Classroom and figure out where you need to go next.